Okay, buckle up because today we're going deep on something really incredible. We're talking about ONG Azongbo Santé et Paix. They're an organization in Benin, and they're doing some truly revolutionary work in global health.
Yeah, what really strikes me about Azongbo is that they're not just treating symptoms. They're looking at health in a whole new way. They really believe that everyone deserves access to the best healthcare. And get this, they're combining ancient Beninese healing knowledge with modern and what they call quantum medicine.
I have to admit, when I first heard about it, I was definitely intrigued, but I was also a little skeptical. Quantum medicine. In Benin, it sounded almost too good to be true. But the more I looked into it, the more impressed I became.
Yeah, it's definitely not your conventional approach, but that's what makes it so exciting. I mean, think about it. The healthcare system, as we know it, is facing all these huge problems like rising costs and limited access, and drug resistance is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. Azongbo is tackling these challenges head on. They're integrating this amazing system of healing that's been practiced in Benin for generations and combining it with these cutting edge technologies.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit for our listeners. What exactly is Azongdo's vision, and how are they actually putting it into action?
Well, at their core, Azongbo believes that health is a fundamental human right. They're looking at the big picture, the global health challenges we're all facing, things like rising cancer rates, autoimmune diseases, age-related illnesses, the whole spectrum. And they're basically saying we need a new approach. And they're finding that approach by blending ancient wisdom with modern innovation.
And they're not stopping at just providing basic health care. They want to revitalize and share this incredible healing knowledge of Benin with the entire world, right?
Right. Exactly. It's this two-pronged approach. So in Benin and across Africa, they're working to elevate traditional healing practices, combining them with modern medicine and these new quantum technologies we're talking about. And then in Europe, they're aiming to actually complement the existing healthcare systems with Benini's expertise and those same cutting-edge technologies.
It's really amazing how they're bridging these two worlds, these knowledge systems that have often been seen as completely separate, even conflicting. But how are they actually making this happen? What are their concrete actions?
They've got a clear plan with 5 key areas of focus. They call them their pillars of action.
Okay, like it.
So they're building treatment centers. The first ones are planned for Cotonou in Benin and Andorra, and they're acquiring all of this cutting-edge quantum medicine equipment for these centers. Then they're also developing and patenting what they call a Beninese pharmacopoeia. It's specifically focused on cell regeneration.
Hold on a second. You've mentioned this Beninese pharmacopoeia a couple of times now. Can you explain what that is,
Yeah.
for our listeners who might not be familiar with that term?
Sure. Basically, it's a collection of traditional Beninese remedies that have been used for generations. For generations to treat all sorts of conditions. They're often made from plants and herbs that are found locally in Benin. And Azongbo is working to document these remedies, standardize their production, and even patent them, to protect this valuable knowledge.
So they're not just using these remedies, they're also trying to preserve and share them with the world.
That's exactly right. They see this knowledge as a treasure. It needs to be protected and shared for everyone's benefit. And they're not doing this alone. They're collaborating with modern medicine professionals, setting up a whole scientific advisory board, and they're actively seeking grants and donations, to support their work. They understand that to really make a difference, they need to bring together the best minds from different fields.
Yeah, it sounds like they're building a very comprehensive and collaborative approach. But I want to hear a little more about this quantum medicine aspect. What kind of technologies are we talking about here?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. They're using a range of devices that utilize electromagnetic frequencies and other pretty advanced technologies. For example, they have this thing called a Rife machine. It emits very specific frequencies and it targets pathogens.
So it's like zapping those nasty bugs with targeted energy.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's a simplified way to put it. But basically, yes. And they're seeing some really promising results with this technology in treating a variety of conditions, even conditions that have been really challenging to treat with conventional medicine.
And they're combining this with traditional remedies like Sadabo. We heard earlier that it can help with detoxification, reducing inflammation, and even potentially support cancer treatment. That's an incredible combination. What other fascinating technologies are they using?
Well, they've also got a pulsed electromagnetic field mattress. Just imagine sleeping on a mattress that bathes you in healing energy.
Wow.
They're using it to treat things like osteoarthritis, obesity, and gout.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. And they also have these local pulsed electromagnetic field devices for targeted pain relief.
So if you have a sore knee or a stiff neck, They can zap it with healing energy. It sounds like something straight out of a science fiction novel, but it's based on real science, right?
It does sound futuristic, but the science behind it is fascinating. They also have ultrasound, radio frequency, and laser systems. They're all non-invasive, and they're used for body contouring, fat reduction, and even anti-aging treatments.
Wow, so they're tackling a wide range of health concerns with these technologies. It's like they're bringing together the best of both worlds, ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science.
Exactly. And remember, they're not just using these technologies in isolation, they're integrating them with those traditional Beninese healing practices. This holistic approach is what makes Azongbo so unique and so promising.
Now, I'm really curious to hear more about this Beninese pharmacopoeia. What are some of the specific remedies that have caught your eye?
Well, besides Sodabo, which we've already talked about, they have a remedy called Akpimiako that's used for neurodegenerative conditions and depression. And then there's Kanako, which is a topical treatment for localized conditions and even tumors. It's amazing what they've been able to do with these natural remedies.
It's really inspiring to see how Azongbo is blending these ancient remedies with modern technology. It feels like they're tapping into a whole new level of healing potential. But where does Azongbo go from here? What are their immediate priorities and future plans? We'll find out after a quick break.
So right now, their main focus is building a really strong foundation for their operations. They're in the process of finalizing their organizational structure. They're getting their first batch of quantum medicine equipment all set up in Benin. And they're working on that really crucial step of documenting and patenting their pharmacopoeia.
So it's all about getting everything in place to really launch this whole initiative, making sure everything's organized and ready to go.
Yeah, exactly. And they're also busy putting together their scientific advisory board. It's going to play a key role, in guiding their research, setting priorities, and helping secure funding, to really help them expand their reach.
It sounds like they're being very strategic about this, really thinking things through carefully rather than just rushing into it. What about that treatment center in Cotonou? How are things coming along with that?
They're making good progress there, too. They want to have it up and running soon, which is really exciting. That way they can start providing services to the Beninese population, and they can start gathering data on how effective their treatments are.
So it's not just about offering care. It's about actually contributing to the advancement of medical knowledge in this whole field, too. That's amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, they're true pioneers. And their work could have a real impact, far beyond Benin. This is a model that could potentially be replicated in other parts of Africa and the world.
That's a powerful thought. But I'm sure there are challenges too, right? What are some of the hurdles they might face as they move forward?
Well, just like with any groundbreaking initiative, funding is going to be a major challenge. Integrative medicine is still relatively new, and it's not always easy to convince donors to invest in this kind of approach, especially in a developing country.
So it's about making a strong case for why this work is so important and why it deserves support.
Exactly. They need to really show the potential impact of their work and get people excited about the possibilities. They'll have to be creative and persistent in their fundraising. And then, of course, there's the whole regulatory landscape. Navigating that can be complex, especially when you're dealing with both traditional and modern approaches to medicine.
Yeah, I can imagine that could get pretty tricky. It's like they're trying to bridge two worlds, and each world has its own set of rules and regulations.
Exactly. They'll need to work closely with government agencies and healthcare authorities just to make sure they're operating within the guidelines. And then there's also the potential for skepticism from some people within the medical community.
I can see that. Not everyone is going to be immediately on board with this kind of integrative approach.
Right. Some practitioners might be resistant to these more unconventional methods, especially methods that haven't been, extensively studied or validated by Western scientific standards. Azongbo is going to have to build bridges, foster collaboration, really show that these different approaches can complement each other and enhance each other.
So it's about changing hearts and minds, basically. Showing the value of this approach through solid research and positive outcomes.
Absolutely. And then we can't forget about the logistical challenges of that partnership they're planning with the Hunikun people in the Amazon rainforest.
Oh yeah, that adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Definitely. I mean, working in a remote region like that comes with a lot of unique challenges.
Yeah.
Language barriers, cultural differences, and just making sure their team is safe and healthy, navigating a very different environment.
It sounds like an incredible adventure, but it definitely requires a lot of planning, sensitivity, and adaptability.
Oh, absolutely. But, despite all these potential hurdles, I have a good feeling Azongbo is going to find a way to overcome them. They've got incredible drive, a clear vision, and they're deeply committed to their mission. They're not going to give up easily.
It's inspiring to hear that kind of dedication. Now, before we move on to the specific technologies they're using, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You said Azongbo is challenging the very foundations of healthcare. Can you expand on that a bit? What makes their approach so different? What sets them apart?
Well, it's their holistic perspective, for one thing. Their willingness to embrace different knowledge systems and integrate them into one unified approach. They're not just treating symptoms, they're looking at the whole person, mind, body, and spirit.
So it's not just about fixing what's broken. It's about optimizing well-being on all these different levels.
Exactly. They're taking the wisdom of these ancient traditions and they're combining it with the precision of modern science. And they're doing it in a way that's accessible and affordable, especially for people who have been marginalized or underserved by the current healthcare system.
I love that. Healthcare that's not just effective, but also equitable and inclusive.
And it's sustainable, too.
Yeah.
By using natural remedies and focusing on preventative care, they're creating a system that's not only good for people, but also good for the planet.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the why behind Azongbo's approach, but let's get into the how a bit more. Let's delve into some of the specific technologies they're using. I'm really fascinated by this Rife machine. Can you tell us more about how it works and what kind of results they're seeing with it?
Well, the Rife machine is based on this really fascinating concept, the idea that every living organism, including bacteria and viruses, has its own unique resonant frequency.
So like every living thing vibrates at a certain frequency.
That's a good way to think about it. And by applying a specific frequency, a frequency that matches the pathogen's resonance, you can disrupt its cellular processes and potentially destroy it.
It's almost like shattering a glass with sound. You find the right frequency and just it falls apart.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. And what's really remarkable is that the Rife machine can target specific pathogens without harming healthy cells, which is a huge advantage over conventional treatments like antibiotics, which often have all those unwanted side effects.
So it's like a precision weapon against disease. And Azongbo is already using this to treat all sorts of conditions, right?
Yes, exactly. And they're seeing some promising results with everything from Lyme disease and chronic fatigue syndrome to infections and even some forms of cancer.
Now, I know some of our listeners might be thinking, wait a minute, is this really legitimate? Does this quantum medicine stuff actually work? What would you say to those who are skeptical?
Well, it's important to acknowledge that this is still a very new field, and we need more research to fully understand how these therapies work and their long-term effects. Some of the claims out there are based on anecdotal evidence rather than rigorous scientific studies.
So a healthy dose of skepticism is definitely warranted.
Absolutely. You should always approach this kind of information with a critical eye and consult with qualified healthcare professionals. But it's also important to keep an open mind. Just because something is unconventional or hasn't been fully validated by Western science, it doesn't automatically mean it's without merit.
Yeah, it's about finding that balance between skepticism and curiosity. Not dismissing new ideas, but also being discerning and looking for evidence.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that healing is a complex process. A lot of factors come into play. What works for one person might not work for another.
That's true for any kind of healthcare, really, whether it's conventional or alternative. Now, you also mentioned that Azongbo is using a pulsed electromagnetic field mattress. That sounds pretty futuristic. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So this mattress basically uses pulsed magnetic fields to stimulate cellular repair and regeneration.
So you're literally bathed in healing energy while you sleep.
In a way, yes. And the potential applications are really vast. They're using it to treat conditions like osteoarthritis, obesity, gout, and even sleep disorders.
Wow, it's amazing how they're finding ways to weave these technologies into everyday life. It's not just about going to a clinic, it's about creating a healing environment that supports your well-being in so many ways.
Right, and they're also using those local pulsed electromagnetic field devices, the smaller, more portable ones, that can be applied directly to areas of pain.
So if you have a sore muscle or a stiff joint, you can just zap it with this device.
Exactly. It's a great alternative to painkillers, which, as we know, can have unwanted side effects, and they're getting some great results with this technology.
It sounds like Azongbo is really on the cutting edge of a new wave of healthcare, one that's focused on this idea of holism and integration and empowering people to take control of their own well-being.
I couldn't agree more. And, we've explored the technological side of their approach. But let's not forget about the incredible power of traditional Beninese medicine. They've developed this patented pharmacopoeia of regenerative remedies. I'm really eager to learn more about those.
Me too. Let's dive into that fascinating world of Beninese medicine. I'm excited to explore the healing power of plants and the wisdom of those ancient traditions. So let's talk about this Beninese pharmacopoeia. What are some of the remedies that stand out to you?
Well, we've already mentioned Sodabo a few times, but I think it's worth taking another look at it. This incredible traditional remedy is made from a carefully selected blend of herbs and plants. And Zongbo is using it for so many different conditions, detoxifying the body, reducing inflammation, boosting the immune system. They're even exploring its potential in supporting cancer treatment.
It's amazing to think that this knowledge has been passed down for generations, this understanding of the healing power of nature.
It really is. And they're not just relying on tradition, they're backing it up with science. They're working to standardize Sadabo's production, make sure there's quality control, and they're even patenting it to protect that valuable knowledge.
So again, we see them bridging that gap between ancient wisdom and modern scientific practices.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes their approach so unique. And then there's Akpimiako. It's a remedy specifically used for neurodegenerative conditions and depression. It's a powerful blend of herbs and plants that can help protect the brain, improve cognitive function, and even lift mood.
It's a natural brain booster. With the rising rates of Alzheimer's and other neurodegenerative diseases, something like Akpimiako could be really valuable.
Absolutely. It offers some hope in an area where conventional medicine often struggles to find effective treatments. And then there's Kanako. It's a topical treatment applied directly to the skin. They use it for a bunch of localized conditions, things like skin infections, wounds, and even tumors.
So it's like a natural healing balm, harnessing the power of plants. It's incredible how Azongbo is combining these ancient remedies with modern technology to create this truly holistic approach to healthcare.
It really is. And it's not just about the treatments themselves. It's about the whole approach, empowering people to take control of their own health and well-being, creating a system that's accessible, affordable, and sustainable.
Now, you mentioned earlier that Azongbo is facing some challenges, especially when it comes to funding and navigating all those regulatory hurdles. How are they approaching those obstacles?
Well, they're actively looking for grants and donations from individuals and organizations that share their vision. And they're working closely with government agencies and healthcare authorities to make sure they're operating within the guidelines, ethically and legally.
So it's all about building relationships, being transparent, and demonstrating the value of their work.
Exactly. And they're working hard to address any skepticism from the medical community, to show that their approach is grounded in both scientific evidence and traditional wisdom.
So it's about building those bridges, fostering collaboration, showing that integrative medicine can work alongside existing healthcare systems, that it can complement and enhance them.
Exactly. And they're being very strategic about it, focusing on getting that first treatment center up and running, gathering data, and building a solid foundation for future expansion.
Taking things step by step, laying the groundwork for something truly transformative.
And their partnership with the Huni people in the Amazon, I think that really shows their commitment to exploring new frontiers of healing and learning from diverse cultures.
Venturing into the rainforest to seek out ancient wisdom. It's a bold move.
It is, but it speaks to their adventurous spirit, their belief in the interconnectedness of all things.
Well, as we wrap up our deep dive into ONG Azongbo Santé et Paix, what are some key takeaways for our listeners? What should they be thinking about?
Well, first and foremost, healthcare doesn't have to be one size fits all. Azongbo is showing us that there are many paths to healing, and integrating different approaches can lead to really powerful results. Second, ancient wisdom is a valuable resource. We need to preserve it and share it. We can learn so much from traditional healing practices, especially the ones that have stood the test of time.
It's about recognizing that we don't have all the answers and being open to learning from other cultures and traditions.
Right. And finally, healthcare is a human right. It's not a privilege. Azongbo is working to create a world where everyone has access to quality care, no matter their background or their financial situation.
That's a powerful vision. Healthcare that's effective, equitable, sustainable, and connected to the wisdom of nature.
That's Azongbo in a nutshell.
Well said. So to our listeners, we encourage you to learn more about ONG Azongbo Santé et Paix. You can find their website and contact information in the show notes. Maybe their story will inspire you to explore new possibilities for your own well-being, or even consider supporting their mission.
It's definitely a mission worth supporting.
That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.